Today I want you to meet one of the great church leaders of America, Bishop G. Bromley Oxam, leading bishop of the Methodist Church. Bishop Oxam has not only been president of the Federal Council of Churches and of the World Council of Churches, but he's also written many inspiring books. Behold Thy Mother, Facing the Future Unafraid, Preaching in a Revolutionary Age, and so many other books, Bishop, that I can't remember them. The other day you may recall that I talked about our sagging public morality. And today I've invited the bishop to be here to tell us what we should do about it and perhaps what the churches are already doing about it. So we'll be back in just a minute. Well, Bishop Oxam, first of all, I'd like to read to you a sort of an indictment I have of public morality and see whether you agree with it. FBI reports show that crime in this country is at an all-time high. And we've all seen that certain labor leaders have dipped into public welfare funds, and theft by businessmen from business has increased 400% in the last 10 years. And there have been more conflicts of interest, I think, in government than ever before. And unfortunately, when these men have left government, President Eisenhower has written them letters of praise. He hasn't fired them with letters of condemnation. And finally, Kiplinger, I noticed, just reports that business morality here is at an all-time, or rather shady business practices are at an all-time high. I would like to know, do the ministers and church leaders feel a responsibility for our sagging public morality?
Well, Mr. Pearson, morality is, of course, a basic concern of the church. If our worship and our religious education fail to eventuate in righteousness, we don't come into the court with clean hands. My answer, therefore, is yes. The counts in your indictment, I can't deny. They're facts, and I've been trained to face facts. But I can't take your phrase, this sagging public morality, and this sagging morality of the country, because that's a generalization. I think this sag is confined to a relatively small percentage. Let me illustrate. Take business. A generation ago, a man who would corner the wheat market would be called a genius. Today we would call him a gangster. There's been a change. Take it in the field of labor. At the beginning of the century, labor was organized, or rather industry was organized, on a war basis. The two-fisted labor leader squared off with the two-fisted business representative. There was violence upon both sides. During that period, labor has won legal status. The result is today you see the coming of the negotiator and the administrator, and the overwhelming percentage of contracts are signed by men who sit round the table and think these things out instead of trying to fight them out. Or again, take it in the matter of legislation. Yesterday, somebody wanted to pawn off some phony bonds, Latin American bonds. He got a brochure, he did it. Today, the Security Exchange Commission comes into that picture. Or again, I can remember the parade of old people to the poorhouse. Now you have Social Security. I'm talking about concrete changes in morality. The National Education Association completed a study. They interviewed some 10,000 teachers, rural schools, schools in the great cities, as to teacher opinion of student behavior. And they came to this conclusion. The teacher said that 1 student in 100 constituted the problem, that 95% were exceptionally well behaved. And when you come to juvenile delinquency, it just so happens if you take all of the people involved, you're dealing with less than 3% of our young people. Now, I don't want to forget the 97%. Therefore, when you talk about our sagging morality, I just can't accept the generalization.
Well, you paint a much more optimistic picture. But nevertheless, Bishop, regarding the 3%, assuming your facts are correct, and I'm not going to really challenge them, what are the churches doing about that 3%?
Well, it's difficult in just a moment to answer, but take, for instance, the number who are enrolled in the church schools, the so-called Sunday schools. A total of about 39 million people. Now, if we're doing anything, we're grounding those young people in the fundamental principles of morality. Or take it in another way. I served in the east side of Los Angeles for 10 years in the section where poverty was rampant, disease, and all the rest of it, the slums, all you get. I know that situation well. It was the highest rate of juvenile delinquency in the entire city. We organized boys' clubs till finally there were 1,000 boys in the boys' clubs there. I can see one youngster, he led the gang that burned the 7th Street school down. Well, they didn't try to burn the school down. They were smoking it caught on fire. Juvenile delinquent. He became the president of the first club. Today, he's the head of a big business. It shows what can be done. Saw another boy, however.
This was through your boys' clubs.
The boys' clubs really did that kind of thing. And what I'm trying to say is that juvenile delinquency is primarily a problem of adult delinquency. We simply do not provide the kind of environment that gives the adventure spirit of youth an opportunity to express itself. These youngsters were on that basis. Now, these institutions, multiplied by hundreds, are all over the country. I could answer your question at length, but maybe you don't want me to take time.
No, that is very, very important. The Bishop, of the three great factors in American life, the schools, the family, and the church, which would you say has perhaps fallen down most?
Mr. Pearson, I can't single out any one of them. All of us have come short. But I want to deal with the other side of this, if I may. I think our public schools are the bulwark of our democracy. The people who are referring to them as godless schools, who are speaking of the school teachers as being subversive and the rest of it, simply do not know the school system. My Protestant sons and daughter, have sat in classrooms beside their Roman Catholic friends, their Jewish friends, black by white, native-born by foreign-born. They've learned in the public school how to live together. That's a fundamental contribution to democracy. I don't want to see developing in the United States of America a score of competing educational systems maintained by different churches. I would rather have us together. In the schools, whenever democracy has been endangered, they've turned out a product that has risen to go out to defend democracy, to die for it if it be necessary. I think the schools make a contribution to our morality rather than the other way around. Now, the family, of course, the late Archbishop Temple said that the most important of all educational factors is the conversation in the home. I'm not sure about what we're missing it there. I don't want to say this when I'm on television, but the truth of the matter is the conversation in the home is pretty well a thing of the past. We're sitting round the television screen. A minister calls upon his parish these days, and how is he greeted? He's greeted by somebody who says, shh, and you're taken in the dark, and you sit down and watch some show. Conversation goes. We miss it there. I could go along on this, but I want to pay that tribute to the school. The church has missed it somewhat because sometimes we've been more interested in keeping the institution going than in using the institution to permeate society with the ethics of Jesus.
Excuse me, Bishop, we have to pause here, and we'll be back in just a minute. Bishop Oxam, apropos what you said about television, what effect do crime stories have on juvenile delinquency?
Well, personally, I'm fed up with the crime stories. I think we have too many of them, but the truth of the matter is the psychologists tell us there is no causal relationship between what is seen on the screen and the evidences that work out in conduct in the matter of delinquency. Consequently, my opinion is one thing, the psychological facts seem to be of another nature.
Do you think television programs should be regulated?
No, sir, I do not. Personally, I'm afraid of censorship from the beginning to the end. I remember when Alfred Lunt and Lynn Fontaine came to Omaha some years ago. The mayor of the city said they couldn't show because it was a line he didn't like. Well, I had no better sense than to write a piece for the paper suggesting a theme song for the mayor for his next campaign. Every little dama must be taken from our drama. Well, he didn't like it, and the show did go on. Censorship is, the play was Idiot's Delight. It is Idiot's Delight, because you have the danger there that moves not only into the television screen, but the pulpit, the press, and the rest of it. I think Frederick Ward hit it exactly right when I asked him one day about the salacious on the stage. He said, this is the answer. Patronize the good, damn with the thunders of silence the bad, and never protest. The church ought to lift the taste of the community until at last the taste would demand what we really ought to have.
Well, I'm afraid I certainly do agree with you. Now, one final question, Bishop. Do you think this period that we're in now tends to breed war or helps to create a mentality that gets us into war easily?
Mr. Pearson, I think it's the other way around. I think war has bred much of the current situation. I'll give you an illustration. During the war, I was in Naples. I was told a boy was out in the stockade. He had committed murder. He was about to be executed. He was an American soldier. He belonged to my church. I went to see him. He asked me if I'd walk out with him the next morning. That meant he wanted me to stand with him. And I didn't want to do it, but he'd asked me, so I went out, and they hanged him. Now, the truth of the matter was that boy was fighting. He was gambling. $5 the stakes. He drew a gun. He shot a man because he thought the other soldier was reaching for a weapon. Now, we'd trained him to shoot. We'd taught him the ways of violence. We had him in a situation where they'd bomb, they'd obliterate cities. Now, you rear a generation in that, and you're going to get some effect from it. So I would say it's the other way around. Let's move in and abolish the whole war system and establish law and order. We'll deal with the problem of morality, perhaps, pretty well.
Bishop Oxam, before I let you go, I have a letter here from your old hometown, Los Angeles, Mr. Joseph Wapner. He raises an interesting point. He says, it's been my belief that our religious leaders have failed us in the manner in which they have taught religion. It seems to me, he says, that instead of teaching hell and damnation for failure to observe what the clergy calls God's law, it might be better to look upon religion not from the dogmatic standpoint, but as a philosophy of life. What's your answer?
Well, first of all, a literary critic would say, from internal evidence, this brother hasn't been in church for a long, long time. As a matter of fact, I don't know anything about the kind of preaching to which he refers. At the very heart of the religion I seek to preach is the fact of love. Thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, thy neighbor as thyself. Jesus said just before he left us, a new commandment give I unto you, that you love one another. The whole drive of religion is grounded in love, and here is the cohesive force that will bind us in enduring social unity.
Well, Bishop, you've been most inspiring, and thank you very, very much.
Thank you, Mr. Pearson. It's been an honor to be here.
I'll be back with a final word in just a minute. Next week, I'm going to interview a member of Congress who's watched government from the inside, from his father's administration, and now from Capitol Hill, Mr. James Roosevelt. I'm going to try to get him to compare his father's problems with those of President Eisenhower.